Hello and welcome to V Concept College English. Today we want to discuss something in WAEC Comprehension that has to do with figures of speech. WAEC will normally give you a passage followed by some questions underneath. Now, out of those questions, one of them is based on figures of speech. You will normally have something like questions A, H, very okay, H. Now, question A to question E, as the case may be, usually test students on what? Direct and indirect questions. So that question F will test students on what? Figures of speech. Figures of speech. And then question G will test students on grammatical names and functions. Grammatical names and functions. And then question H will test students on replacement of words. Replacement of words. Now, in this video today, we shall be looking at figures of speech. And then in our subsequent videos, we shall discuss grammatical names. Now, when talking about figures of speech, there are about several of them that WAEC normally set their questions on. The first one is simile, and then the second one is metaphor, and then personification, irony, euphemism, hyperbole, and rhetorical questions. If you want to do very well in English, and especially in the section of comprehension, then you must have a good understanding of how to identify figures of speech. Today, we want to start taking them one after the other. Let's discuss the first one, which is simile. Simile. What is simile? Simile is a figure of speech where you use as or like to compare two different things and show a common quality between them. Simile, a figure of speech where you use as or like to compare two different things and show a common quality between them. Please take note of words like as and like. So when you have an expression that is comparing two different things, by using words like as or like, you know that it is what? Simile. For example, she smiles like the sun. So take note of what the use of like here. Number two, he moved like a deer. Take note of the same word here, like. This is all about simile. Now let's talk about the second one, which is metaphor. What is metaphor? Metaphor has a very sharp contrast with simile. Metaphor also compares things. Like you can use metaphor to compare two things, just like what? Simile. But the difference is that when using metaphor, your expressions will not contain as or like. So there is the absence of what? As or like in an expression that is a metaphor, whereas an expression that is a simile will usually contain as or like. And the two figures of speech are the same in perspective. They express the same thing at the same degree. A figure of speech where you compare two different things without the use of what? As or like. Now, let's talk about some examples. She is the sun. That is, we're bringing this one from the fox example we considered under simile where we said she smiles like the sun. So when you remove like, then you can just say she is the sun. So we can say that metaphor is direct comparison, while simile is indirect comparison because it says like, but this one says it is. So for the second example, we can say he is a deer. He is a deer. Instead of saying he is like a deer, you go directly by saying he is a deer. So these two examples are what? Metaphors. Now, I want us to understand something about metaphor. And this is it. All idioms and metaphors, but not all metaphors are idioms. I will explain that now. All idioms are metaphors, but not all metaphors are idioms. When you are given an expression that is idiomatic, just know that that expression is a metaphor. On the contrary, not all metaphors are idioms, because some metaphors are just surface expressions, telling you that two things are what similar or share the same quality. Number 3, personification. What is personification? Personification is attaching the quality of humans to animals or inanimate objects. So when you attach qualities that only human beings can perform to animals or to inanimate objects, then we say you are using a personification, okay, as a figure of speech. The attribution of human nature or characters to animals or inanimate objects is personification. Now let's have some examples here. The sun smiles down on us. Smiling is the attribute of humans alone. It's only humans that can smile. So when this quality is being attached towards the sun, then we say you are a personifying sun. That is personification. The story jumped off the page. This is like the story developed wings or legs and what leapt off the page. So this is attached the quality of humans to inanimate item, that is a story. So that is that of personification. We'll move forward to the next one, which is irony. Irony, that's number 4. What is irony? Irony is a figure of speech that involves the use of words to convey the opposite of their real meanings. Like you are saying black, but what you actually mean is white. Or you say black, and what you mean is red. So things like that. The use of words to convey the opposite of their real meanings. The use of words to convey the opposite of their real meaning. Use of words to convey the opposite of their real meanings. Now let's have some examples here. A marriage counselor gets a divorce. That is an irony. And then you have the cobbler's children have no shoes. Someone who makes shoes, okay, now come to be that the children have no shoes. So it's an irony as well. So that is that about irony. The next figure of speech that is common with WAEC is euphemism. Euphemism. What is euphemism? Euphemism is a figure of speech that involves presenting unpleasant ideas in a pleasant way. There are certain things that are difficult to hear or that are simply vulgar in nature. So to communicate those ideas, they have to be represented in a pleasant way, okay? And that method of representing them is called euphemism. A pleasant way of talking about things that are unpleasant. Now, let's have examples. A recession is pending. Instead of saying a recession is pending, which is a little bit unpleasant as an expression, you can say a period of negative growth has been forecast. Instead of saying that is a difficult task, you can rather say things like, I will enjoy the challenge. So this is what we mean by euphemism. Let's go over to the next one, which is hyperbole. Hyperbole. What is a hyperbole? A hyperbole is a figurative exaggeration. It is an expression that exaggerates actions or events. It gives them a heightened effect through deliberate exaggeration. Okay? That is what we mean by hyperbole. It creates heightened effects through deliberate exaggerations of events or actions. Now, let's look at some examples. I am so hungry that I could eat a horse. So this is exaggeration. There's no gravity of hunger. that can make you to eat up a whole horse. Then number two, after he lost weight, he was a toothpick. So these are all exaggerations. So let's go over to the remaining one, which is rhetorical questions. Rhetorical question. A rhetorical question is a figure of speech as well. Like you can see, it is a question. We normally find a question mark behind them, that is at the end of the words. Okay, they appear like questions. They are normal questions. When you see them, you will easily recognize them, because if you are asked such questions, there's no way you will be disposed to answering or responding to them. So those type of questions, we call them rhetorical questions. A question asks to create a dramatic effect rather than to get an answer. Now let's look at some examples. Do you want to be a failure for the rest of your life? So when you are asked this kind of question, you will just know that you don't have to respond to it. Then another one can be, how could I be so stupid? Now, having gone through the explanation of the different figures of speech that are commonly used in WAEC, we now want to look at some past questions. 2021 WAEC. Beth Funke insisted she was as serious as any of us in our class. So you can see, all right, the part that we are considering is as serious as any of us in our class. And this is the part that we usually be placed under the passage, okay, under the comprehension passage. So to be able to understand the full context or full expression, you can go to the passage and locate where it is used or where it is underlined, and then consider the complete expression. So I've brought it here for the purpose of our consideration. As serious as any of us in our class is a comparison between Fouquet and probably her classmates. So the use of as for comparison here indicates that this expression is simile. And that's that. 2017 WAEC. The concerned look on mother's face told me I had stirred up a hornet's nest and should be prepared for the sting. 1. What figure of speech is used in this expression? 2. What does it mean? Now, when you look at this expression very closely, I had stirred up a honest nest. Look, is it simile? Is it metaphor, personification, and all? Now, it's not an irony, it's not a euphemism. Remember, I explained at the beginning of this video that when you have a figure of speech that tends to be idiomatic, just know that it is metaphor, because all idioms are metaphor, but not all metaphors are idiom, because some metaphors are just simple expressions, okay, which are not idiomatic per se. Therefore, the answer to the first part of this question is metaphor. So you just write metaphor. Metaphor. That's it. Number 2 says, what does it mean? You say, I had stirred up an honest nest and should be prepared for the sting. It's like a beehive. You have disturbed the bees in their home. So you should be prepared for the sting. That is, that one should be prepared for the consequence of his action. It means the writer should be prepared to face the consequence of his actions. So that is the meaning of I had stirred up a honest nest and should be prepared for the sting. So that is that on that for 2017. 2016 WAEC. My cousins ran like the wind and escaped, leaving me to my fate. Question 1. What figure of speech is used in this expression? 2. What does it mean? It begins with like. So you can say it is simile. And then number 2 says, what does it mean? To run like the wind means to become swift.